believe in fate? That there's some overriding force that predetermines and orders the course of events in your life? Or do you make your own history influenced by your own actions and choices? Did your life, good or bad, choose you, or did you choose it? For Australian author Graham Potts, he's pretty certain that writing chose him, not the other way around. Graham has just released his first novel, No Free Man, described as a spy thriller on a grand scale. A story of multi-billion-dollar oil deals, superpowers, crime bosses and secret agents, sprinkled with a whole heap of action. The intriguing thing about Graham is that he has fit in his writing in between his job as a mechanic with the Defence Forces. Good afternoon to you, Graham.
Thanks for having me.
So, where are you based with the RAF at the moment? Have you ever even been posted to Darwin?
No, I haven't been actually. I'm visiting for the first time. So I'm actually based in southeast Queensland.
Oh, okay. So, welcome to Darwin.
Thank you.
What's it been like so far? You've been here for a very short time.
All I can tell you so far is it's less humid than Brisbane is right now.
Wow.
So
All right.
breath of fresh air.
Now, I asked in the intro, I'm talking about fate. Are you a believer in fate?
I'd like to say no, but anecdotally, I actually have a Year 1 report written by Miss Canning that says that I was very adept at literature and I had a love of stories. So that was when I was 6. And my mother managed to scratch that up after I got signed on by Pantera Press. And I went, wow, look at that. So a very astute young teacher, I tell you.
And yet you went into the Defence Forces.
Yeah, I don't know if you read many Greek tragedies, but every step I took away from writing seemed to bring me closer to it. So it was a strange thing.
What do you mean by that?
I did a maths degree, and I did English as I started as a minor and ended up doing a major. It never actually occurred to me that I found it easy and just a sort of way to fill in some credits because I was good at it. And it actually took an English lecturer to belt me over the head to make me realise that maybe I should give it a crack.
So you didn't think of going into journalism?
No, never. Never even crossed my mind, to be honest.
You didn't even pause then? No, never.
I'm not trying to insult anybody. No, I did. It's been a third generation Air Force by complete accident. It turns out that a lot of my family history, we were a lot of swaggies and stuff, used to wander up the eastern seaboard. I think we get itchy feet and like to wander, and so the Defence Force is a good way of doing that. And I had my application in for uni when I was 18, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I threw my lot in with the Defence Force and thought at least I'll get a trade. And 14 years later, I'm in a radio booth in Darwin.
And here we are talking about you being an author for this terrific new book. How does it feel now that it's published and out there for people to read?
It's starting to sink in. People are starting to talk about these imaginary friends that only lived in my head aloud. And so that's something to get used to. Okay, how do you know that person's name? But it is good to see that people are enjoying it too and really getting a kick out of it.
All right, so delve in with us into No Free Man. What characters do we meet along the way?
Yeah, the first one you'll meet is an assassin who works in Russian organised crime, who kind of fell into the world by accident and wouldn't mind finding a way out. You'll also find a thief who's slightly miffed and wouldn't mind getting a little bit of payback. You'll meet a spy who's actually trying to cover up a crime. You'll meet a Russian gangster who wants it all, as it is, a president of a country that will burn it all down to stop him, and a young analyst who has to piece it all together before it all falls to pieces.
Wow, so it's quite complex characters you've got interwoven.
Yeah, I try to put a lot of effort into characters. It's one of those things I found. I read a lot of thrillers growing up, and then I came into the classics as I was getting to my late teens, and I thought, why can't we take characters like this and put them in books like this? And so that was always my goal, to try and slam them together a little bit and give the characters a bit more depth.
And have you reached that goal, do you think?
I think that, I will continue to strive, but I think a lot of people are sort of responding to the characters. They're starting to resonate. They connect. Even if they don't necessarily like them, they understand them. They care what happens to them. So that's a good achievement, I think.
When you're working as a mechanic with the RAF, when you finished work, I assume, did you live on base?
When I was a young fella, I did.
So when you're working as a mechanic, when did you find time to write the book?
Night shift worked best because I'd clock off maybe midnight or 1 a.m., go home, have a shower, and then sit in front of the laptop. When the sun came out, I went to bed, and then I'd get up again when had to go back to work. Day shift, it's a little bit trickier. But yeah, that's how it sort of worked out. And then
Wow.
I'd give up some weekends and some other things.
Did you go to work in this sort of foggy haze with living the lives of these characters as you're going in to be a mechanic? Were you able to sort of let go of these
Yeah, most of the
characters?
time I could leave them at the front gate, but there were times when they did sort of follow me around.
Yeah, and
nag
your
me.
plot thickens and how am I going to connect this? And I could imagine that your brain was sort of multitasking.
Yeah, it was actually good. It's good to work. I'll tell all aspiring writers, find a job because it gives you something to do while your brain chews on it in the background. And sooner or later, something will pop up in your head and go, oh, this needs your attention. I've just had this idea. But it's good to step away from the writing for a while. And it's funny how how the subconscious works that way.
I appreciate that every author writes at a different pace. How long did it take you to write this?
I never know how to answer this. This version, probably about 2 years.
This version?
Yes. I've been working on this sort of story for 16 years. So,
Wow.
roundabout.
That's
I was set a
long time in the
challenge by
making.
my high school English teacher, and some of the characters actually have the same names. I had the old notes from high school. I scratched them up. I'm not sure where they disappeared to now, but that's why the book's dedicated to my high school English teacher. He kind of started this. So.
On 105.7 ABC Darwin, 783 ABC, Alice Springs, speaking with Graham Potts. He's an author, a brand new book, his very first, No Free Man. It's taken him 16 years to get it to paper, and here it is, published now. He is here in the Northern Territory to share his experience at a writing workshop that's happening on the weekend. Has the English teacher read the novel?
Yes.
And what was the review?
He loved it.
Great. He didn't go like, any spelling mistakes or the grammar's not right here?
If he did, he was very polite and didn't point it out. So, but I think my editor would have taken that more personally than I would have. So.
Is it a little bit daunting or a bit overwhelming when people close to you, like the English teacher or your parents, read it? Is that a bit overwhelming?
I wouldn't say daunting at all. Actually, my dad has had to suffer through every single draft of this book on the way, and my mum refused to read it until it was actually on the shelf.
Did she go to a bookstore and buy it?
She waited till my book launch.
Okay.
No, actually, I tell a lie. She demanded an advance copy. That's right. Yeah. So I had to fetch her one of those. So.
There's quite a little bit of violence in this novel.
It has been said, yes.
Is that from personal experience through your professional job?
Absolutely not. No, I fix planes. So there is no violence in my job.
Okay.
So
where's it come from?
It comes from the idea that I noticed in some thrillers they would talk about these characters like crime kingpins or thieves, for example, or even assassins, and I thought that maybe they weren't going hard enough. I mean, if you read the news and you see what some things happen in the world, you go, it is pretty violent out there. So why aren't authors writing that? Why do they sort of skip past that? It seemed much more honest to actually put yourself in the shoes of one of these characters and say, how would they deal with this? And in a lot of cases, it might be violently.
Critics have compared your writing to Matthew Riley, which is really tipping the hat, really. How do you feel about that?
I actually idolise Matthew Riley in a few ways. I know he gets some criticism about his writing, but it's really, really, really hard to write a story that moves at the pace that he does. And until you give it a crack, it's pretty hard to throw eggs at him.
Are you working on any new novels?
Yes, the sequel. So
Crikey, we don't have to wait 16 years, do we?
Not 16 years, no. Like I said, this version only took me 2 years. So I'm hoping to churn out the second one. The ideas are all in my head. So maybe 12 months to 2 years again. So
are you giving up your full-time gig as a mechanic to now take on a full-time gig writing?
No. No.
You said that because your boss is listening, isn't he?
No, I don't think my boss is listening.
You don't want to do it full time, or for
I'd
you
love
this
to do
is
it
just a
full
hobby?
time. Yeah, I'd love to do it full time, but at the moment it's just a hobby. You know.
Okay.
If people would like me to do it full time, I'll need to sell a lot more books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Hey, Graham, you are actually in Darwin. You're going to be saying g'day to locals and sharing copies of the book. Where and when?
So Friday, so tomorrow I'll be in the Smith Street Mall at the bookshop in between 11:30 and 1 p.m. signing some books and saying hello. On Saturday I'll be at the Defence Community Organisation's welcome event from 9:30 a.m. So I'll be there with the Northern Territory Writers Centre, just hanging out saying hello. And on Sunday, I'm running a workshop, Writing for Thrills, How to Write a Thriller Novel. And that'll be at the Frog Hollow Centre for the Arts. So between 11 and 1 p.m.
Do you have a copy of the book with you?
I do.
Like right next to you?
Yeah, right next to me.
Could you please read a little section of it out for us?
Which section? The first page?
No, not the first page. Oh, well, the first page. If you think that's going to set the scene and give us a taste test of
It
the
may
book.
set the scene.
Go on then.
There are a few twists, you see. If I don't read from the beginning, then I'll give something away.
Oh, okay. This is Graham Potts, author of No Free Man.
A middle-aged couple sat at a table for two, barely speaking. The man slouched forward on his crossed arms and stared into his drink. The woman, hands in her lap, gazed through the window while fiddling with her wedding band. No threat. Three women gossiped loudly in the middle of the pub. Their lined faces were spattered with makeup and their clothes were stretched taut across their sagging skin. Cackling and snorting, their wild gestures threatened to knock over two empty wine bottles. No threat. There was a business meeting towards the rear. 5 men in threadbare suits and gaudy ties howled at their own jokes and scored the waitresses out of 10. There were shaky hands, stained teeth, and greasy comb-overs lacquered with gel. The centre of mass was a stern man who had been ladled into his suit, a jumble of veins on his temples. No threat. Two newlyweds sat beside a window, huddled over uneaten meals. The woman talked and her tattooed husband stroked her hand tenderly. He was left-handed, muscular, his knuckles scarred and his skin tanned. His right leg shook as he tapped the heel of his work boot on the floor over and over again. He was a potential but unlikely threat. A young couple sat at the table beside them. The girl wore cheap clothes and expensive jewellery. Her companion was effeminate, his hair styled and his hands manicured. She smiled at him awkwardly, chewing her nails as he stared at her breasts. No threat. There was a birthday party in the corner. The guests chirped to each other and cooed at the birthday girl perched at the head of the table while taking photographs with their phones. Tokens of affection were placed before it and impatiently shredded in a shower of ribbon and wrapping paper. It was tedious to witness, but it was innocent. None of them deserved to die. ...
Graham Potts, I see a movie out of this. What do you reckon?
I'm not going to get that. I'm not going to plan that far ahead, I tell you that.
Well, congratulations and thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.